I gotta get that on tape. Now in the last Jeep we did, we were able to mount the Kenwood amp up underneath the steering column here. Unfortunately, for this install, we're not going to be able to because this car has a power inverter built into it. There's an AC outlet here by the cup holder, and because of that, that's where they hit it. So we're going to have to go back to our old faithful spot, which is up underneath the seat. And out of all the things in a Jeep install, this has to be the stupidest thing. I don't know how, this is as far as this thing comes out. You can barely get in there to release this. I don't get how this has stayed like this for so long. It just blows my mind. We've gone ahead and removed the MyLink to get to the factory USB, and then we have a USB GM1 that we're just going to plug into it here. This will allow us to retain the factory USB jack and the armrest. Now, if you're trying to do Android Auto, this method will not work. Android Auto is real susceptible to cable length. You can retain this if you're doing something with like dual USB and make this USB 2. If you have CarPlay, it'll work, but Android Auto, what you're going to want to do is remove one of the cigarette lighters, put a USB little nickel charger there. Now we just need to remove this back metal bracket here so we have room for our radio to fit in, and then we just need to trim this piece right here. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, let's head over to the bench and let's build the kit and get the wiring harness going. So for this install, we're going to use the RP4 CH11, which is of course the Pack Smart module that will allow us to retain the steering wheel controls. We're going to use apparently we're going to use the American International EU06. Now American International, Pack, and Best Kits, they're all the same company. But what's not is this guy here. This is the Metra 956511. With this Pack wiring harness, it actually comes with 2 wiring harnesses. Depending on the year, you need a different wiring harness. The data is the same, so this doesn't matter. What you want to do is take it and see which one plugs in. In this case, we know it's this one. And really the difference is this one has a full squared corners and this one has these tapered corners here. And of course, the other thing you want to check is plug it in and see if these 8 speaker wires and this 1 blue antenna wire are in the harness. And what that's for is if it's an 8 or a 4 as far as whether it has a factory amplifier or a non-factory amplifier. So if it has 8, no amplifier at all, it's good to go. We're going to go check this in the car real quick and see if it has a 4 or an 8. Alright, so it's an 8 and it does not have the blue turn-on wire, so kudos there. So now the other thing you want to make sure you do is set the steering wheel controls on this, because if you don't and you plug it in without the steering wheel controls set, bad things will happen. The ground will explode, open up, and eat the car. On page 2 right here, pick one of the radios. In this case we have a Pioneer, which is 7. We'll go ahead and turn this dial here to 7. Now we'll go ahead and we'll put a little piece of tape over it, and that's our indicator that we have set it and we don't have to worry about it. Now this piece of tape here, this is what's telling us to do that. We can remove it now and not have to worry about it. We'll just go ahead and set this aside to the very end if we want to do some reprogramming of the steering wheel controls, because this comes programmed and it tells you here on page 2, these are the pre-programmed things, but like right here where it says voice, it's come over here and voice is programmed from mute. We're not going to want that. We're going to want it to be VR. So this page right here talks about what all the options are. So at the end when we're done, we're going to go ahead and reprogram it. Now for the radio, we're doing the MVH 2300 NEX. So naturally these don't fit right, so we got to go ahead and grind these down. if we haven't mentioned it, the amplifier that's going this is the Kenwood M8005. This is the same amplifier as their Exelon version, the X801.5. The difference is this has a conformal coated circuit board. For those of you that don't know what that means, is they put an epoxy on the circuit board to do two things. One, to keep all the electronics fastened to the circuit board, because when you're in a boat or in something else where you're doing a lot of this bang, 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 bang from waves and stuff like that, those little pieces on the circuit board can vibrate and bend and do things like that. So conformal coating is designed to, it's like an extra layer of glue that holds everything in the circuit board. And then the second function of it is to help against water intrusion, like salt air, moisture in the air, or anything like that. They also put these guys right here on the end. This is a little rubber thing to help keep water out. The reason why we're doing this is because, for one, it's a Jeep, two, it's a soft top, and three, it's a Jeep. What we got done so far is we went ahead and we have our RCA harness made up. What we like to do is we put heat shrink over the ends of the RCAs, so these match the standard four colors. So you got white, gray, purple, green, and then we don't put them over the subwoofer RCAs because it's not necessary. So, and we do that on both ends. It just makes our job a little bit easier. Gone ahead and pre-wired the end for our speed wire. So this is all set and ready to go into the amplifier. The speed wire does have the remote turn on in it. We are going to be using that, which brings us to the actual wiring harness. The wiring harness is all set and ready to go. And what I like to do is kind of separate out the wiring harness. So here is all the speaker wires, and then I like to run in a remote turn on into this group of wires. It essentially loops through and up to the radio. These are all, of course, the wires we're not going to be using. We've gone ahead and capped off all those speaker wires. Add a couple zip ties just to hold the harness together. Everything else is taped up and secure, and we're all set and ready to go with our steering wheel. We have our subwoofer wire all set and ready to go. We soldered on some fork terminals. Now, this is what's called an over-under on the sub channel to keep this uniform, because you have set of two, set of two, set of two, set of two, and then you have an over-under, so like positive on top, negative on the bottom. So when I do that, what I like to do is stagger the actual connection, so that way this will just go right in and it'll be nice and pretty looking. We have our ground all set up and ready to go here, soldered on the terminals, the fork terminal on these, so this will attach there. Then we have our power wire also all set and ready to go with a soldered on fork terminal. So we have all the wiring that's going to attach to this amplifier and or go behind the radio all set and ready to go. The reason why I didn't attach it to the amplifier yet is because I wanted to get that done so that now we can go over and build our amp rack that's going to hold this in place, and then we can come back, attach all that, put it in the car. I own one snap-on tool, which is this guy right here, and this is the best. This thing is awesome. I see why you guys love to buy snap-on tools, but yeah. So on the bottom of these seats, there's this bracket, and what you have to do is you have to remove the bracket and flip it upside down, and then you can reattach your airbag to it, and then you don't have to worry about it interfering with your amplifier. Piece we need needs to be 24 by 12 inches across, and we're going to use 1/4 inch ABS. So let's go over to the table saw and cut off a piece. All right, so we actually have a piece of scrap an inch longer, but an inch shorter. But I think it'll work just fine. So what we're going to try to do now is make a shape that's going to suspend the amplifier over here like this. So now what we want to do is cut this so that we can fit the amplifier in here and remove as much of this plastic as necessary to accomplish what we're trying to do. We've sketched out the basic shape that we're looking for. In the back here, this bolt is going to hold this down. We're going to end up planing this material down to a little less than 1/8 of an inch so the seat doesn't sit crooked. And then in the front here, what we're going to do is obviously remove for this hump here. We're not going to use this seat bolt. We're actually going to put a rivet here in the front to hold this piece down. Let's get this over to the workbench and we'll make these lines permanent, and then we'll take it over the saw and cut them. Alright, so this is the basic shape we're going for here, and then what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to plane this down. So we'll just draw a light line here. This is what we'll have to plane off. The amplifier will sit here, just like this. We'll have enough for the RCAs so that they're not gonna get bumped. And then the rest of the wire is gonna go off either this way or come down this way. Let's go ahead and cut this out. So this is the basic shape that we're looking at. Now what we want to do is just take it over the car and test fit it real quick, make sure that this isn't too long here, and then we'll round over this, and then we'll plane this side down right here. All right, now we're just gonna go drill a hole. You guys always ask where we ground them, and we say, well, look around your area. Like, grounding it to this would be a great spot, but looking right here, here's a factory ground right here, so this is where we go when we go to ground these amps. There's a nice big factory ground right here. Our wires are gonna run up this way, and then our power wire will run that way, along with our subwoofer wire. Let's get this over to the bench. The wire's hooked up, so we can get this back into the car. It's time to hook up some wires. Fernando's been working under the hood for a while, hooking up the power wire. Let's check in with him and see how it's going. How you doing, buddy?
Hey.
You got it done?
I'll just take a selfie.
Yeah. Our battery fuse is in. We did a nice simple mount. Attaches up here, S-bend down. There we go, cool. Now what we have left to do is finish up the box. Gonna solder in some wire in here, add on the spacers to lift it off of the floor. All right, so we were getting a little bit of whistling out of the speaker cup. So what we did is we went ahead and just gooed over the whole thing so that now it's like, yeah, it's just a ball of goo. So I'm gonna wait a little bit for that to cool down, and then we'll put the woofer back in. Like we talked about earlier, what we wanna do is remap the steering wheel controls, because we have like answer, phone, which we can multitask, so we can have this answer and hang up. Right now, VR, voice recognition, set to mute. Then you have the buttons on the back, so you have volume up and down, track up and down, and then you have two center buttons. So we can go volume up and down mute, track up and down source, VR, answer, hang up, all by reprogramming this. And how that's done, there's a little button, and then there's a red flashing light that you can see through this hole right here. What you do is you go to page 3, find your specific radio. In this case, we're doing a Pioneer, and you want to fold it and just get to your specific radio. We'll set that right there. So we're gonna go ahead and hit the button, and we'll go volume up, volume down, mute, and then to skip, we'll hit the button, source, track up, track down, skip band, skip phone menu, answer call, press and hold the end, blinks twice, hit VR, and when you hit the last button, you should get a bunch of blinks, because that's meaning you cycled all the way through. You can go and hit the buttons, it should light up, so we're good there. Now what we need to do is plug the radio in, and we can see if we programmed it right. Perfect. All right, so the reason why we always do the polarity test is because of silly mistakes like this. Heat shrink. I put red heat shrink on the ground, and I put black heat shrink on the positive. It was an honest mistake, but that's why we have the tools to test to see if we did it wrong. So let's test the steering wheel controls. What's the weather like today?
It's currently clear.
This one is made to be loud, very loud. Obviously, when we do two sets of rocker components with tweeters, this thing is gonna hurt your ears, and it does, and that's great. You know, it's a Jeep, it's gonna make a lot of noise. We got a soft top up here. We're not gonna have any issues getting around that. Yeah, all right. What do you got to say, Fernando?
Let's go home. That's it.
You sure? All right, guys, this one is done. Awesome. Hope you enjoyed the show.
All right, on to the next one.
Thank you. See you guys. Have a great night. Bye.